Hey guys, we're going to talk today about handrails, guardrails, and continuity. So if you could grab for me your 2018 version of the visual interpretation of the stair code. We're going to use that to help us understand the difference between guardrails and handrails. So if you could turn for me here to page 14. Okay, and we're going to look at this image here. So in the code, we sometimes use synonymously the word handrail and guardrail, but they're regulated differently in the code. In fact, the code never calls them guardrails. They just call them guards. So you can see here, this is a guard. What a guard does is kind of what the word, it guards you. So a guard stops you from falling off an elevated walking surface or the side of a stair. Okay, so you can see here, this is a guard, and you can see here, this is also a guard. Now, a handrail can sometimes be part of a guard, like for example, this guard here has a handrail on top of it, but they're not the same thing. Handrails are regulated differently. So the purpose of a handrail on a stairway is to keep you from falling down. So they want to make sure that it's graspable and that it's at a specific height. Now a guard, all a guard does is keep you from falling off. So not something to hold on to as you're walking, but something to keep you from falling off. So handrails on a stairway have to be between 34 and 38 inches in height. There is no regulation on guards. So if we look at this image, on the right-hand side, you have a guard. If the handrail that's on top of this guard is between 34 and 38 inches, the top of this guard, which is a handrail, meets the criteria for a code rail. But what if your homeowner or client wants that rail to be really tall for them to feel safe? They want it to be 42 inches tall. Well, the top of this guard system no longer serves as a handrail because it's too tall. Now, this one on the other side, you could mount between 34 and 38 inches, and that would meet the criteria needed to have a handrail on a stair, but this one would not if it was 42 inches tall. Okay, so I want to make sure you understand the difference between guards and handrails. So let's take a look at another page here. Let's talk about continuity and why handrails are judged a little bit differently. So what does continuity mean? You can see up here, these numbers come from the IRC, the International Residential Code, and R311.7.8.4 is a section where you would find these words. So if you're ever dealing with an inspector, they can open up their IRC and they would find these exact words. So it says handrails shall be continuous for the full length of the flight, from a point directly above the top riser of the flight to a point directly above the lowest riser of a flight. And handrail ends shall be returned or terminate to a newel post or safety terminal. So we can look in this image here. This is a handrail, and it is continuous for the flight. This is flight 1, this is flight 2, and you can see here this is continuous from first riser to last riser. And this one, oh, hold on. It doesn't pass the riser here. I'll get into that in 1 second, but it must be continuous. So that's continuity. Handrails are judged by continuity. You can see here, if this handrail came up and returned to the wall and was not continuous, meaning that you had to let go of the handrail here and grab the handrail again on the other side, that does not meet code. You have to be able to run your hand all the way up from the bottom of the stair or the bottom of the flight to the top of the flight without letting go. Okay. Now there are a few exceptions to that, and they're noted here. It says handrail continuity shall be permitted to be interrupted by a newel post at the turn in a flight with winders at a landing or over the lowest tread. So if you had a transition like this, at a landing, you could bring your handrail up and stop it, and then pick up the handrail again on the other side, much like you might see here. So code is saying, okay, we will allow that. It's also saying it will allow you to terminate over top of the lowest tread. So here's some images that represent that. You have a starting newel here, so this handrail does not actually pass the bottom riser, like the code says. But per those exceptions that we read, you can terminate over top of the lowest tread with a volute, turnout, starting easing, or a starting newel. Okay, so those are some of the codes that are very important when it comes to handrails. Now let's think about guards for a moment. Guards are regulated under the openings that are inside them. So if we read right here, sorry, on that last one, we were on page 13. I apologize, I didn't tell you that. Let's go to this page. This is page 24, okay? So if we're on page 24 and we look here, what does it say? It says that opening limitations for guards. Required guards shall not have openings from the walking surface to the required guard height that allow the passage of a 4-inch sphere. You can see that represented right here with this red ball. So on an elevated walking surface, you cannot have more than 4 inches opening in between any of your balusters. Okay, now it's different for a stair. You can actually see that over here. And if you read exception number 2, guards on the open side of stairs shall not have openings that allow the passage of a 4 3/8 sphere. So that's one thing that often gets overlooked when it comes to stairs. We think guards are 4 inches everywhere, and they're not. They're 4 inches on an elevated platform, like upstairs, but on the stair itself, you're allowed 4 3/8 inches. Okay. There's also one more exception we can read here. The triangular openings at the open side of a stair formed by the riser, tread, and bottom of a guard shall not allow the passage of a 6-inch sphere. So you can see that here, that 6-inch sphere. So those are some of the opening limitations within guards. You need to remember all 3 of those: 4 inches, 4 3/8, and 6 inches. Now, one more thing, let's look at where guards are required. So let's look at this. This is page 23. If you'll turn to page 23, this tells us guards, where are they required? And it says, guards shall be provided for those portions of open-sided walking surfaces, including stairs, ramps, and landings, that are located more than 30 inches measured vertically to the floor or grade below at any point within 36 inches horizontally to the edge of an open side. Sometimes codes are hard to understand, but that's why we have this visual representation. So what does that mean? That means that if you look at this handrail or this section of a stair, it's telling us that from this point down, you are less than 30 inches. So a guard is not required from this point down, but it is required from this point up. So starting a guard up here on the 3rd tread meets the criteria required for a guard. But what about handrails? Handrails say they must be continuous from the top riser to the bottom riser of a flight. So if we were to stop this guard here and we were using this guard as our code rail, we would have an issue. What does that mean? That means on the other side of the stairs, you can see here, they have a handrail that goes from top riser to bottom riser. So in this scenario, this is within code. You have a handrail here that goes top to bottom. That meets the criteria for handrail. And you have a guard here which protects you at any point that you're over 30 inches above the walking surface. Okay. So I hope this helps you understand the differences between guards and handrails, and what codes apply to each.